I am befuddled. Befuddled is the word. Because it was the showdown in the jungle, the return of the battle. We had our new mantles, nothing else has changed. And we were going back in against Brackers, raging Brackers, to secure that kill, to mount his head upon my wall. And I did not do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it in about 5 hours of tries. I did not do it. In fact, in some tries, I died so fast that I was shocked and stunned. And it became a mental game at that point. So we got more to get into today. Let's get you caught up on where we are as we are in the end game. Oh, man. Let's start with how it began. It began with the idea that I picked up these mantles yesterday, right? I got these new mantles. I was pretty excited. I had the new fireproof cloak. I had an apothecary cloak. I had a temporal cloak. I had a rock steady cloak. I didn't bother to go and get the others. I kind of trust the opinion. It's like, there are some more mantles. You don't really need them. And they kind of require a bit of a grind to get. I was like, all right, that's cool. We'll move forward and we'll get ready to go. But I did have I wanted to upgrade these cloaks because you can upgrade them in Iceborne so that you can insert gems into them. Now, I was second guessing myself, but I was 99% sure, and I'm still pretty sure on this, is that when you slot gems into the cloak, they're only active while the cloak is active. So if you put, like, resistance gems in there, you'll only have that resistance while you have the cloak active, and they're not up 100% of the time. Like, specifically, I was going to use the fireproof cloak and the rock steady cloak. And what they do, if you're following along and you're not a player, is a fireproof cloak. Sounds pretty obvious, but it makes you immune to fire and blast. Blast damage. It'll stop you getting set on fire. It'll stop you accumulating blast as a debuff, which is a stacking debuff on you that eventually will explode and do a lot of damage. So it prevents that as well. And I think it increases fire resistance just in general. So you can still take fire damage. You're just not going to get set on fire and have a burning debuff, things like that. You'll still take fire damage. So I had that. Now, the way these cloaks work is they are up for a duration, but once they've done a certain amount of damage prevention, they will just stop. So what you can't do... So the temporal cloak, for example... It gives your character the ability to auto-dodge. Even if you're in the middle of, like, DPSing, it will just immediately dodge you out of the way, so you don't take any damage. The Rocksteady Cloak, you do take the damage, but you have a higher defense, I think, but it stops you flinching, so your character will just carry on DPSing the way through it. So that means if you, like, cling to a head or something like that, and it would blast you off or throw you off, it just won't do that while you've got the Rocksteady Cloak on. You'll just stay on the head and continue to do damage and things along those lines. It also prevents, which I found out during these tries, it also prevents roars knocking you off, which usually use earplugs to counter, like, the animal's giant roar. The big dinosaur roar would usually stun you or, you know, CC your character temporarily. It prevents that as well because it can use the roar to stop you doing certain things. So it counters that as well. However, once it's done a certain amount, it will just fall off. And you can, you know, if you're careless with it, it will just disappear within a matter of seconds because you took a tremendous amount of damage. It did prevent you from being knocked back, but at a certain point, it's just going to fall off. Okay. Well, I had one upgrade quest, which was for the Rocksteady Cloak. And I was like, I think I'm going to use that because it will allow me to sort of deal with one of the biggest problems I have with Raging Brackers is actually just incidental damage. I'll come back to the Brackers fight shortly, but bear that in mind for now. So my quest was to kill Black Diablos, which I fought a few times. So I'm quite comfortable with Diablos. Then I realized it was Master Rank Tempered Black Diablos. That typically means, oof. This typically means, yeah, it's not only Master Rank, but it's also a tempered version, which is going to be like one of the harder versions, or the hardest version. I don't know if there's another one coming, of that boss. And I'm like, right, okay. So as I was approaching, I took the quest, and as I was riding up to it, I was quite confident because I was like, oh, it's Black Diablos, but it's a Master Rank version. But, I mean, we literally killed Diablos twice yesterday. No problem. And I'm walking in and I was like, oh, it's the tempered version. Now, typically in Monster Hunter, from what I can tell, it doesn't mean they're more aggressive, really. It just means that any damage they do is going to be massive. And one of the biggest... I don't know if this is a Monster Hunter World thing. And I'm a little maybe caught up in the weeds on this. Potentially. Is that because you have infinite resources, because you can always get your item box, the only way they can really increase the difficulty is in a couple of ways. One is make everything that's higher level trap immune, which we see once we get to Elder Dragons. A lot of monsters fall into the Elder Dragon category, even though they're, not dragons. Like Kirin, which is a lightning pony, is an Elder Dragon, for example. Teostra is classed as an Elder Dragon, although it's like a fire dog. Things like that aren't dragons, per se. And that prevents you using your own CC to, give you a DPS window and things like that. And the other way that they could do it is just make things hit really, really hard, so that you're... it's a combo of things. They make them hit very, very hard, and very similar to Souls-like is, and anybody who's ever played a Souls-like will know this, if you hit that heal button, they'll generally do something to counter it, to punish you for trying to heal. So you have this sort of snowball effect of you took damage, a lot of it, you have to heal it up because the next hit will kill you, but trying to heal it means you're going to get punished unless you look for very specific windows in order to get that heal off. So it adds that complexity to it. And then that means you can because you can endlessly spam healing, right? You can spam heal, so it needs to punish you in some way, because if it does kill you, you're just going to go and get, another 30 or 40 healing potions of a variety of types. So that was my concern, is I've never done a hitless Diablos by any means. And sure enough, it took a couple of goes to kill this. Nothing special, actually. Nothing special. And it actually was really fun. I enjoyed this because it brought back the danger of Diablos. Because what you find as you gear up, you get better, you get more experience, is these monsters that you have a fun memory of. And if you go back to video number 3 of our Monster Hunter journey, Diablos was my first sort of boss. It was the first one I was oh, this is a little different. And I had to play better to overcome that challenge. But over the last, week or so, Diablos has become just a monster. And you go in, you kill it, and you can have fun with it. You can jump on his head. You can, you can do all sorts of things. You cut his horns off, and you're hey, got you. Oh, you're charging, you're tunneling, you're doing all these things. But when they've got a ton more HP, obviously, because they're the higher level version, and they do a ton more damage, you get that sort of, nostalgic effect of, God, I remember how annoying this fight is. This guy can tunnel back to back to back so many times. And also the very stark reminder that I got with Black Diablos was that it's capable of tunneling and re-emerging during one animation. It can do that faster than you can recognize that's what's happening. So it'll have an animation where it tunnels into the ground. So you're oh, I need to get away. And you put your sword away to start running, but it's already come back out, and that can do, 80% of your health and just kill you, because it'll also probably stun you. So that came back as well. I was oh my god, I totally remember this. But I had fun with it. Enjoyed this a lot. Captured him and took him home. Then I realized I did not have a quest. I was hoping that doing this quest would also unlock the quest for the Temporal Cloak, because I like the Temporal Cloak. It's better for me to... In my brain, if I'm wearing earplugs, which is part of the Rocksteady effect... The Temporal Cloak, which just auto-evades you for a few times until it runs out, just prevents all damage. And as I just said, trying to heal up... In fact, I'm probably going to swap to... And now my brain is still going about Brackers. I'm probably going to swap to the Temporal Cloak. That makes more sense because of what we're about to talk about. But I didn't have a quest to upgrade it, to put gems into it. So I'm looking around and I'm confused and stuff. So I asked the questions is there something special to upgrade this? Because it wasn't the easiest thing to acquire. We had to do it through an event. And the answer was, yes, there's something special to upgrade it. So I was okay, we'll leave that alone for now. We've kind of got what I was initially going with, which was the Fireproof Cloak, which is upgraded, and the Temporal Cloak. So we can, the Rocksteady Cloak. That's what we're going to use. So then I went through my gems. I was trying to think of what the best play is here. And the first thing that came to mind was, I need to science how dangerous certain things are. Because one thing that I remembered from our big first try, where we had the first couple of hours on Brackers, was that I was very much similar to, and I'm gonna forget its name, it's the big dragon that's supposed to be multiplayer, but you can solo it, that we did last time. Whatever that thing is called, was being CC'd. Out of everything we ever do in Monster Hunter World, my character being CC'd is the most frustrating experience of my existence. I hate it. because it leads to so many wombo combos where your character is just completely out of your control. There's nothing you can do. You are just helpless, lay on the floor, and it often can occur with these harder bosses after one attack. You'll have one attack, and it'll either stun you or knock you to the floor, and your character will, like, crawl around, and you just have to sort of accept that for the next 12, 15 seconds, you can't control your character. It's a long time, and in that, one more attack will kill you. And what this also leads to, and I saw this a lot with Brachydios, is that you are punished by one bad input. And what I mean by that is this game is based on animation lock. Like, you commit to an attack, and once your character is doing that attack, similar to a lot of ARPGs, it's doing that attack. And if you are attacking at the wrong time, and the enemy, you've, like, started to attack while the enemy is doing something which is going to hit you, that's going to happen. And what can happen with the harder bosses is that you will, like, oh, I'm pretty confident here I can do another swing of my weapon, and it'll go, actually, you should have recognized it was going to do this. The game is trying to tell you, although the summon attacks are extremely quick. Black Diablos in particular has a charge that is almost instant, and you need to be very careful of that. Is that you will get this knock hit, and your character will be CC'd. It will then kill you. And if you've got the cat res in hand, the cat will then res you. But as you're coming up, it will hit you again and kill you again. So you lose 2 lives because of one bad input. Happens to me a lot. And you're just like, I literally can't do anything about this. There's nothing I can do. I made a bad call 20 seconds ago, which has now cost me 2 lives in this fight. And put me on the back foot. And lost my buffs. All those kinds of things. Very, very nasty. But it was time for Brachydios. So I wanted to test certain things. Like, how bad is, say, ground tremor? Because that's a CC. How bad is blast? How bad are his roars? Because I'm looking for gem slots I can swap out. Like, can I just deal with earplugs? With dropping earplugs, and then I can put something else in? So I did a few tries. What is the problem? It started to feel like insanity after a bit, because I put a lot of tries into this. Is that I learned more about his combos. I had some really good pulls where I was dodging almost perfectly while maintaining a sort of melee uptime-ish. It was always like you can't do more than 1 or 2 attacks max before it's going to do something else. Because I would say this fight isn't that hard in general. It just hard counters how I like to play. And a smarter me, or a less stubborn me, I guess is what I'll call it, because you guys are probably raging about it in the comments, although it's just the way I want to play because I enjoy it, is that I would not play the switch axe here. Clearly. I would not do that. I would definitely be like, I want to try ranged out here, because it's a very, seemingly on the face of it as where I am now, is like a very anti-melee type fight. And what I mean by that is, if you get, he has attacks when his paws, hands, whatever, are explosively charged, which he does extremely regularly. I have a theory on how this mechanic works. And it's larger than the dodge window. Like, you can't dodge out of it. It's too big. The radius is too big. Which made me think I probably need maybe... There is abilities like Evade Extender, which increases the range, and some stuff that increases the iframes. Because I don't know how good the immunity frames when you're dodging are in Monster Hunter, but I suspect at their base level, they're practically 0. Because I have witnessed very clearly my character like pressing dodge and being like in midair. So the character is like not even touching the ground because you've done the dodge, and be hit in that. And that's like a perfectly timed dodge in a different game. But again, it comes back to, this isn't a Souls game. It doesn't work that way. And very often, and I will always point this out because it is true, whether it's not an excuse, but it's true, the hitboxes can be very janky, is that you will clearly not collide with anything and still take damage. Like, blatantly nothing hits you on the screen. You're close, but you're not getting hit, and you will still take damage. So when it came to Brachydios, things became very obvious. If both his hands are ignited, he's managed to get both his explosive hands up, then you are pretty screwed. He gets a new attack pattern at that point, and he can just fill the area with explosions, especially his like frontal, where he like tunnels them through, because they track. There's a tracking on that attack that is hilarious. So he will do like right hand, and it will come towards you, so you'll dodge out of the way. But he immediately does the left hand, and that will track your new position. And it will, sometimes you would think they were like frontals, like straight lines out, right? They're not. The first one tracks you, and then the second one tracks you. So they can intersect, they can bisect, they can do all sorts of things. So the idea is that you need to like kind of run out of one, bait the other one, and then dodge back or dodge to a side. You have to be very wary of these attacks. And he's got another one, which has a really hilarious attack where he does 3 headbutts. He does a headbutt, which will do a frontal. So it'll go right out in front of him. So you can move to the side. Then he'll do another headbutt, which is also a frontal. The third one, though, this one is such a rat. Because the way it works is he headbutts, and then he'll set off a wave of explosions that follow you. But the tracking on that is right. It's probably like a second or two after he's done the attack. And I've had that wave follow me around the boss to like its tail. Because in theory, you're like, okay, he's headbutting that way. So I'm going to circle round him. And this worked, I would say, like 5 times in a row. And then get round to almost its tail. Because that would mean it'd have to do like a full 180 to get back to you. And then on this, like the 6th go, it totally did that. And I was like, I'm at the tail and it still managed to get me. So it like snapshots where you are really late, and then it will like follow you around. So your temptation is like, I'm round at the back and I can start doing some attacks here. And it'll be like, nah, it's coming all around. It also has a very thick frontal area of it. So it'll cover like the front, and it'll have this follow around. These kind of attacks, which are just brutal. Absolutely brutal. And the way you do that, which I now know, is like you wait and wait and wait and wait until you see the lines appear, and then you dodge out of it into a different way. But don't get caught near its hitbox, because you can't roll through the enemy. So very often you would get caught like on its leg, on its toe, or something like that. The other issue that I definitely found that I was infuriated with is the incidental damage. What do I mean by that? His hitboxes are so wide, and he's such a big boy, that going near certain parts of his body causes you to take damage. Now, he hits so hard, it's not an insignificant amount of damage. It can be like 10 to 15% of your HP, even if you have a lot of health, that just keeps chipping away on you kind of every time he moves. If you're in certain areas, it's like if he's even just like rocking, you'll just notice. And the best way I realized that this was happening is the Rocksteady Mantle has a very clear like chainmail rattling sound effect when you're taking damage, because that's the Rocksteady Mantle doing something, right? It's preventing you from being moved in some way. And I just started to hear it all the time, despite the fact that like visually nothing was happening. It's like, I'm in a good place. This is fine. But you hear it go ching, ching, ching. And you're like, what the hell? And then you're looking at your HP. And very much what this led to was a snowballs effect. This is why I'm thinking about the cloaks again. A snowball effect is like, I actually haven't really done anything super wrong here. And I've maintained good uptime. And he hasn't hit me with a major attack. You know, like I've dodged his punches. I've dodged his slams. I've dodged all that stuff. However, his toe passing by me or the tail being near me has just ding, ching, ching, ching me all the way down. And I need to heal now. And that's when you're dead. That's when you're dead. He's coming for you in a big way. Because you can't just sort of like move out and try and heal. You have to wait for him to commit to something or aggro the cat, which the cat was a love-hate relationship throughout this fight. The cat was a love-hate. On occasion, the cat is like pulled aggro and he's over there. I can heal up. All good. Sometimes, though, the cat caused it to behave in such erratic ways, and he's got so many like room attacks that you're just like, I can't get into it because of the way the cat's manipulating the boss, which I'm sure is an endgame thing. I would be surprised if a lot of people play with the cat when they're serious about this game, because they're like, I prefer it if the boss is, and some of you will have encountered this before, I prefer if the boss is targeting me, because then I know what to do with it, rather than it targeting, say, the cat, and the explosions on the floor, for example, are just tracking in really bizarre ways. And what looks like a good DPS opportunity actually isn't, because this attack is going to do something bizarre. And also, it can flip on a dime who it's aggroed with. So you could be DPSing something, it'll just turn and smash you in the face. And you're like, oh, God, nightmare. By the way, I ran into this a lot. There's a couple of combos in there that you can't do anything against. And if I could, one thing that was definitely very apparent is I could have a really good set of moments going. Really good. Like, good damage, wall bang, 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 just actually working away on it, good health. I got some very, very good tries where I legitimately feel like we're very close to the end of the fight. Like, just the gut feeling you get in this game from when the enemy is getting a bit weaker. But I get combo womboed. And I was like, oh, God. And it also got rough getting there. There are certain mechanics I'm picking up, though. One is base, because I've now done P1 a lot of times. I would say, I actually know they're keeping a tally on my live stream. I didn't know they were doing this. So I've had 33 tries against this. I did a little graph of the difficulty curve for me. And it's pretty shallow. Like, I haven't been really pushed in this game like we've had in some other games where we're fighting some extremely notoriously hard monsters in some game that, like, the world of gamers know about. It's like, oh, have you done that fight? Yeah, I've done that fight. You know, that kind of thing. And we're at 33 tries now. Like, I think the most we've ever had before this is, like, 6. Something like that. Maybe 7. You know, like, I don't think we've hit double digits. We might have done in like a couple of occasions, maybe against the big multiplayer boss. Again, I forget his name. Maybe that one. But other than that, not really. And now we're at 33 on this one. Like, just, and I said this, my comments were, it's like, it just feels like fighting this boss compared to everything else done feels like I've never played this game. That's how it feels. Feels like I've never played this game. Everything I've learned in the last, I think we're on 140 hours into this game, doesn't seem to apply here. But what does that mean? Let's reflect on it, right? Which is what I've done overnight. It reflects on the idea that what I'm doing doesn't work. And this is how I finished my stream that day. It's like, what I'm doing, my approach to this fight is just fundamentally wrong. Because this doesn't work. There's a lot to manage, for sure. You have to keep his arms destabilized, which isn't the easiest thing in the world because he's very erratic on his movement. So landing that melee hit, it only takes 1 or 2 melee hits to take the explosive temporarily off his hands. You have to be aware of not overcommitting that attack because the explosive drops to the floor and you've got to get out. Water Moss is consistent if you can guarantee the hit. But certainly once his arms are lit, really hard to hit that water moss, at least with a controller. There's lots of occasions where I'm like, if I had a mouse, this would be fine. And I do have a mouse, but I've learned on controller. But what I found is, like, I can target it, reticle. I'm pretty close as well. It shouldn't go too far. And then you fire, and by the time it gets there, it's somewhere totally different. Which is like, you've got to predict kind of where it's going to be. Sometimes you nail it and it's fine. The water moss will just drip it off and you can just CC him from there. And sometimes it just doesn't do anything. And you feel like you've fired 5 or 6 times. At one point I fired, I doubt Bex can find the clip. I fired into where his head was ignited and his hands were ignited and they were all kind of bunched together. And I fired like 3 shots into them and none of them landed. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. But yeah, I need to try new strategies today. That's my point. I've diced around with like working the legs and working the arm. Because right now I'm like, I can get the head and that's best damage. But being in front of him is just a horrendous experience. But in the couple of goes where I was like, I wonder what it's like attacking the legs. His movement is so erratic. Getting time on the legs is really hard. It's doable. One thing I noticed at the very end of the stream yesterday is I am not fighting this monster for very long. And I started to think back to like Barioth and Diablos, where, you know, time was of an essence. I was fighting these bosses for like 50 minutes. My fights with this, even on my like really deep into the fight, are like 12 minutes. And I'm like, am I zerging this boss? Am I like trying to kill this in a way that's like a farm boss? Like, I had these thoughts of like, I have more time. I don't need to go as hard. I could take my time and wait for my opportunities. One thing he doesn't do is like a long breath or anything like that, where you have a nice window that's very, oh, I can punish here. Like, even Alatreon has that when I had the first few pulls against him. It was like, oh, it's just breaths and things where I can really work the head. He doesn't have those. So I need to reevaluate that today and try something else. I think I'm going to change cloaks now I think about it. Because the healing thing is a problem. So just auto-evading and not taking that damage is probably preferable. Yeah. Probably going to try that. I did swap my gems into anti-blast, which was nice. Gave definitely some leeway. I'm not sure I'm going to fit it. I'm now thinking about my build. One thing that did cheer me up, though, is obviously a lot of people were cheering me on to get this done, which was nice. People are very invested in this fight and what is going on here, how are we going to do it. But Rurikan, who we're going to be doing the podcast with on Monday, with a spoiler review. I can't wait for that. I did say in the chat yesterday, If there's something going on in this fight that I'm just not recognizing that makes it significantly easier, I'm going to be mad. Because it might be the case. It's part of the nature of doing this blind. Is like, it might be the case that just, yeah, if you do this, this fight is like infinitely easier. I'm like, okay. But he was like, I'm going to recreate this because he's been watching along like it not dying. I'm going to recreate this. So at the end of the stream, in fact, several people, I'll be interested to see what other people did. Several people were like, can you just show us your gear? Let me try this because it shouldn't be this hard. And I know it shouldn't be this hard. It's like, it shouldn't be this hard. And so I listed out the gear I'm having. I did like a full thing of like, this is what gear we've got. This is the rarity. This is what I'm doing. And I'm glad to say, in a way, I felt better about this. Is Rurikar messaged us like an hour and a half, couple of hours later. It's like, I've done it. It did take him 3 goes. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot to my 33, but considering the experience difference, I'm okay with that. I was like, I expect you to go in and one-shot this because you've no doubt killed this monster a lot of times, right? This is not your first rodeo with this guy. So I was like, I'll take that. I'll take that. It took you with like probably several thousand hours of experience and writing guides for this game, multiple tries to kill us. He's like, I did it in 3 goes. I couldn't get the armor all the way to where you were because I didn't have the money. He was too poor to upgrade all the armor levels, which is fine. But he did say, and this made me feel better. He went, I will say, though, it is a miserable experience. So I was laughing reading it. He goes, it is a miserable experience. And when I killed it, I did cart twice. I almost did not kill it, I'll be honest. It was a miserable experience. I carted twice. I did manage to finish it, but goddamn, it was miserable. And I'm like, that's all right. But it also really highlights is you're doing it wrong. Like your setup, whatever, be it the weapon, be it the armor choices, whatever, is just stupid because this is miserable. It's horrible. And I was like, I'll take that. I'll take that. I have no doubt I'm going to get some comments like, yeah, I went in one shot and whatever, but I trust Rory's been straight up with me. He's like, yeah, I did do it. It took 3 tries. I couldn't get your armor all the way to the same sort of upgrade level, but it was miserable. It was miserable, and I carted a couple of times on the last go. I carted twice and nearly didn't make it. I'm like, all right, I'll take that. I'll take that. That's okay. But it also highlights, yeah, what you're doing is so wrong. So wrong. But I'm going to win. God damn it. I'm going to win. So tomorrow I'm going to be here with my championship belt. I'm going to raise it up high. I'm going to give the people's elbow. I'm going to do the whole thing. But until then, Brackers lives. God damn it, man. I'll see you tomorrow.